The foreigners residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt, and I am the Lord your God. Leviticus 19:34.
The land flourished because it was fed from so many sources, because it was nourished by so many cultures and traditions and peoples. President Lyndon B. Johnson.
Devil is amongst us. Stay back, boy. This calls for divine intervention. I kick ass for the Lord.
Welcome to Heresy and Hearsay, a podcast to reclaim faith in the context of political discussion. I'm Reverend Barney, and you can follow me on the social medias at Seth Roth II. Heresy and Hearsay has a Patreon site where you can find us at patreon.com/heresy and hearsay, where you can find our past shows and a way to help us. Just $2 a month will go a long way to help us make this humble show. And this week's am with my co-host, September.
Hi, I'm September, also known as Ninof12, and you can follow me at Ninof12.com. Find all my shows there. And you can follow this show on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and any podcast catcher. Just look for Heresy and Hearsay. Please like, share, follow, subscribe, and give us a review. That really helps other people find us. You can find our first volume of this podcast on YouTube and Patreon.
So today we're going to talk about immigration and how important it is for us as a nation to continue to grow, and how the faithful should be really reacting towards the immigration and immigrants. But before, and where immigrants come from. But before we do that, Brother Bowie, can you lead us in a word of prayer?
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
So before we get into, some of the links and stuff that we've gotten for the show, September has more of a personal connection as far as immigration is concerned. And I thought hearing from someone who is married to an immigrant may kind of give you an idea of why we are so committed to this topic.
Well, I mean, it's a lot of moral things, really, but I do have firsthand experience because, as Barney said, my husband is an immigrant. He's Canadian. He's still not a citizen. He's what's called a permanent resident alien. And thankfully, his parents helped with part of our fees, and there was, saving money, and because it's not inexpensive. It can be quite a barrier to do this legally. We did do it legally. A bigger barrier for people who don't have the experience I did have. I spent a lot of time temping in lawyers' offices and working for Delaware North Corporation, and so I'm very well versed in legalese. I've done a lot of I created forms for liquor licensing. I handled house sales and a lot of different stuff. So knowing the language, I was able to complete my husband's immigration paperwork and stuff without a lawyer. And there's just a lot. You don't just, people think we got married and then you became a citizen. That is not at all how it works. If you marry someone, you can sponsor them to become a citizen, but you have to sign paperwork promising that you will support them. A lot of people think immigrants, they just come over here and get on welfare. Well, no, they can't. It's in the immigration paperwork. They cannot apply until after 10 years of full 40 hours a week documented employment, and then they might get some benefits. And if they try to get any before then, they get kicked out of the country. It's part of what they signed to come in. At least, that was the case then, and my understanding is still the case. This was in like 1999 and 2000. Well, I mean, it took until probably 2001 for him to get his green card. To even go back to Canada, to just cross the border, and we lived in Buffalo, and he was with Enter the Haggis, he worked in a band, and he had to cross the border all the time. And that was another fee and more paperwork where he had to write an essay to get parole papers. They're called parole. And if you don't understand legalese, you think of parole as something else. So no, these people with parole papers are not just a bunch of criminals. A parole paper, it's like a pass. He got a special pass so that he could cross the border and come back. And, it's a lot of promising where you're going to be and for how long and why, and justifying that. Or he would have had to stay in America and not work until, which it's very complicated. We did all of that thankfully without a lawyer. The lawyer, the cheapest I've seen is about $4,000 for an immigration lawyer, and I'm not even sure if that includes the fees on top of it for filing. I know there's a $500 one, there's a $150 one, like the fees just kept coming. And you have to prove that, not just you're married, but then we had an appointment, like a year later, we had to go into immigration, and immigration offices aren't necessarily nearby, to take pictures and prove that we had actually been, living together as a married couple, so that, it's more that you're not just marrying people to get them in the country situation. It's complicated. There are a lot of barriers. It's not easy. Asylum, of course, is a little different, but there are a lot of misunderstandings out there about what immigrants can and cannot do. It reflects the ballot measure, because I don't know if this is in our notes later. There's a ballot measure on the North Carolina ballot that when you see it, it looks harmless right now, but it's very much designed to confuse people, to hype up anti-immigrant sentiment, and to weaken our state constitution, because it just says, only people who are citizens and the state designates the right to vote, you're born here or naturalized, can vote. So what happens there is that language in our Constitution already exists. Only citizens can vote. This is the thing. Yes, immigrants can get, Social Security cards and driver's licenses, and sometimes illegal immigrants can, but that doesn't just mean they can vote. It's not happening. One, they wouldn't want to be risking getting deported. Don't be stupid if they are here illegally, but their Social Security cards are run against a database when people register, and it verifies they're a citizen. So the language in our state constitution right now, it was reflective of the 14th Amendment, like it's the exact same language. The language in the new one they're trying to put into our state constitution weakens it in such a way that if the state legislature passes some law saying certain immigrants or women or people of color, like if they just make a different voting requirement, this amendment in our Constitution would back that shit up, because it does not reflect this particular 14th Amendment language. So everyone's clear. This is not harmless. This is part of a plan to disenfranchise people, and even having it on the ballot, it looks harmless. People are probably going to vote for it, and it also will hype up the people that believe now that illegal immigrants are voting.
Right, and I didn't put it in the notes that was because I was going to go through we were going later on in the month of October. The month of October is going to be
going through the ballots.
Go through the ballots. As soon as I get mine, I can actually look at it and everything else.
Yeah, well, this is very relevant to immigration and anti-immigrant sentiment. My husband has been here for 23 years, and he's still not a citizen. He cannot vote. I saved the money. He said when Obama got elected, he'd become a citizen, but he still hasn't done it. Too much hassle, I guess. But permanent, I said permanent resident alien. Permanent isn't even permanent.
Right.
Every 10 years, not only that, yeah, they could just decide to, deport a bunch of people for a different reason. But every 10 years, he has to go get new fingerprints and, a picture and pay another fee that's not cheap to renew his green card, for lack of a better word. It's not really what it is, but...
Right. I have a friend of mine who is Irish, who works for F1 Racing, their TV programming, and he was talking about how he was having to do that. And it was, I think this was like 2007 or something like that, and it was like a ridiculous amount of money. I mean, it's just, so that's one of the reasons why the Democrats keep talking about wanting to make a path to citizenship a lot easier, a lot less expensive, because it's expensive. So, for those who know or maybe don't know, John Oliver, formerly of The Daily Show, and then last week Tonight, and also it took him nearly 15 years to get his citizenship. He has dual citizenship because he's British, and they allow certain countries to keep both citizenships.
Sort of.
Ferguson, yeah, sort of.
It's really just a loophole. Same thing with Canada. When you become a citizen of the United States, when you are sworn in, you have to sign the paperwork when you apply to be a citizen to forswear any other nation. But there's a lot of nations that are like, nah, you were born here. We just don't acknowledge that you did that.
Yeah. Craig Ferguson, who was famously on the Drew Carey show and then had his own nightly talk show and everything else, it took him forever to get his citizenship as well. And these are people who have money, who can hire the lawyers that they need to do, but it's still, there is this obscene amount, because people who come here, especially those who are seeking asylum, but in general, people who are coming here most of the time are looking for citizenship. They want to join, they want to become American citizens. Not everybody, but there's a large majority of them would like to be citizens, and finding it a legal, easy way to do it would be something that has been talked about. I know George W. Bush really wanted had a bill about trying to fix the citizenship. I know Reagan, and these are Republicans, so they also understand, or they did understand at some point, the importance of immigration in our nation. And now it's become a cudgel. It's just become xenophobia and racism, and it's just gross as far as all of that's concerned. I posted a link about some of the guidelines that were set up because there are certain countries that are, having issues as far as, in our hemisphere that we are allowing to come in. And the process to do it. I posted that particular, what the process is for that. And it's lengthy, and it's as far as, what the questionnaires and stuff like that. But I think it's also extremely important that that all those individuals that JD Vance and Trump and everybody is talking about, and all the Haitian immigrants and everything, they're here legally. They're here from a protection, and JD Vance and he, oh God, he mentioned this. It's like, just because they waved a magic wand and made them legal doesn't mean they're actually legal. It's like, no, they're in the law. It's legal. What the fuck? Mm-hmm. Like, that's not how any of this works. Like, you're a senator. You should know how laws work, and if it says it's legal, then it's legal. I don't understand. And neither one of them can just admit that they fucked up, that they took a right wing, that they took neo-Nazi talking points from a Reddit post, basically, and then ran with it and turned it into a national thing. Because that's where the large majority of the Haitian issues came from, was from neo-Nazis not happy that there's Haitians in Springfield.
No.
Yeah. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel, as far as legally. A nonprofit has, because there's a specific law that allows them to do this, has basically put into place where JD Vance and Donald J. Trump should be brought up on charges for what they've done to the citizens of Springfield. Not just the Haitians, but all of the citizens of Springfield, because they've terrorized that city. And that is that's extremely interesting. The charges, I don't know if anything will come of it, but the fact that they're saying, hey, these people should be charged. This is basically, we're saying this should be we're doing a citizen's arrest kind of situation. These people should be charged for these crimes. You know, they're not suing, they're not trying to sue for money. That may happen later as a class action lawsuit or something to that effect. But this is criminal charges that they're trying to get filed, stating that these individuals have caused physical and emotional harm to the citizens of Springfield. And I think that is a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, more than 30 bomb threats were directed at state and local government buildings after Trump's bullshit. And schools were closed. I mean, this is a lot of damage. And it's against the law. I mean, it is inciting people to violence and terror tactics.
What is the term? Stochastic? I'm bad. Terrorism. I'm bad. I have problems saying certain words, so I apologize. But it's stochastic. That's not the right pronunciation. Terrorism. But basically, it's inciting terrorism through speech.
Stochastic?
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. I was trying to figure out what word you were trying to use.
This is why I have you as my partner.
But it's using like coded languages, and
right.
It's to create plausible deniability, which Trump tries all the time. And please let him stop, getting away with it. That would be good.
Yeah. Well, this isn't even very coded as far as the language is concerned.
It's right.
Yeah, it's blatant. Yeah, and we discussed this last week, but
but he didn't say like
go and threaten them with bombs. Correct.
Yeah. So,
but
it'll be tricky.
But yeah,
he was only as vague as he was when he caused an insurrection, which
Which, you know what? I was looking through some of our old stuff, and I realized that we went on live during that, and that's something we'll talk about in this next month coming up. We're going to talk about the threat that Donald Trump poses to us, but I forgot we went on live during the insurrection, so I haven't watched it.
I'm glad we had that to work through and try to process what was going on, because it was such a...
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been coming up a lot lately, understandably, and I'm just... The horror.
Yeah, and
I'm not over how dangerous this whole thing still is. Like that people don't respect that we didn't have a peaceful transfer of power the first time in our history, and like that people are going to vote for this guy is insane.
Right, the fact that it's still close just makes me, it's like, what? Why is this even close? Why? Yeah. But I heard someone say, and I think it might have been Hal Sparks, but I've heard this said, that it's kind of interesting and cool that when you take those DNA tests, I took one, I took the 23andMe, that nowhere on my DNA did I say that it said I was American. I do have some native, blood in me, but what I mean is, that there's not a term American in the DNA database. There's Northern European, there's Northern Britain, but there's no American, quote unquote, as far as DNA is concerned. There's first citizens or natives here, but that's not what I mean. This country is a country of immigration. This country is a country of immigrants from the beginning. Though some,
I don't know that I'm comfortable with this argument though, because my brain is taking it to, well, yeah, because we came over here and like genocidally took it from the natives, and that's the most American thing ever. So yeah, it's the argument they're making now, right? Like like you're a patriot from an insurrection, and you want your guns like the revolutionaries had to fight against the king, and like that's their argument too. Although it's disgusting. Like,
well, I was thinking more of the fact that it's more of when you look at where we are as far as the people that have come from. This entire
I know, but people aren't
immigration.
ready. People don't accept our imperialist bullshit history as real.
We all. Don't get me wrong. There is a lot of problems as far as that's concerned. So it's our history is that's one of the reasons why they keep wanting to ban and burn books, because they don't want people to learn our true history, our bloody history. What Columbus did to Hispaniola, for example, is just off the charts gross in every situation. So and they want to stop people from learning that history, and that's important. It is. That even though this is a nation of immigrants, it's also a nation of genocidal maniacs that had no problems doing what they did. But there's a reason why it's called the Trail of Tears. It's not the Trail of Happy Joy. So yeah, it's we have a problematic history when it comes to immigration as well. But I think it's important to realize that we are still immigrants and that we still need immigration. That when the Irish came here, they were treated like shit. When the Italians came here, they were treated like shit. When the Eastern Europeans, they were treated like shit. And yes, and they weren't considered white enough at the time, and that has, of course, evolved and changed. And now we're getting immigrations from South America and from all over the world. And we shouldn't have a problem with this. But for some reason, there are still people that are terrified of losing their grip. And this is what it is. It's xenophobia. It's a fear of the other. It's the fear of not having a place at the table. Instead of the table just being widened and having more chairs put on it. That's what this immigration should be about. It's not about you having to give up your chair. It's about making the table longer so that we can put more chairs and more people can sit at the table.
Oh, and folks can look even at our more recent history and realize how silly they're being. That would be great. It wasn't all that long ago. I mean, the no Irish need apply. There was this same kind of xenophobia against Italian immigrants, like phase by phase.
Chinese immigrants.
I got, the Japanese internment. Like there's people just coming here, working hard, seeking the inspiration of the American dream. You mentioned the thing with the Statue of Liberty and that gift to us, because America has been an inspiration for being able to be free to create your own life. And then people come here, and the people that are already here, it's that I got mine. It's, right. They're afraid people are going to take it away. With workers' rights and unionization, and then black folks started to be able to enter the middle class, and then it was white flight. This xenophobic thing. Why are humans like this? Like, less of us need to be like this.
Right, and it's a taught thing, because if you see children at play and everything, they don't have that kind of xenophobia. That's something that you talk about, the innocence of children. One of the innocence of children is that there's no xenophobia. They don't care who they play with as long as they like the person.
Yeah, no, it's it's a curiosity. in children. That's the natural human condition. It's curiosity about difference, not fear. People make the argument that the fear is natural because they're different. Well, I don't know. Do you have kids? Because I have kids. And I remember, like, my oldest son when he was 2 years old. And it was funny and it was adorable. But, like, my girlfriend, she's a black girl, and she was babysitting, and she was just like, oh my God, this boy is so adorable, because, you know, they're laying on the couch, and it's like petting her skin, like, you're so pretty and brown, like, just this innocence, you know, but people live to expect it, and they don't realize that it's their behavior that ends up being reflected. Because little kids are just like, ooh. I saw a picture the other day, a local girl, like, she was like, I'm doing good as a parent, because this girl, that little black girl, came running over a little white girl in the store because they were wearing the same outfit. Like, look, it's my twin. Like,
and that's what it is. Like, I was raised in Western Germany, so there wasn't a lot of. But I was also raised on military bases, so there was a plethora of, Hispanic and African American and, all these different kind of races that I interacted with, growing up. So none of that really affected me and everything else. So I never had that kind of, and my parents weren't teaching me to avoid certain people just because of their skin color. My father was raised racist, but my mother very quickly fixed that, and both, it's like, no, my son's got to live in this society. Yeah. Well, my mother told me the story years after, when I was old enough to understand. She looked at she told her mother, my grandmother, it's like, look, there are certain words you can't use around my son because my son lives in this society. God, I just said that. But, my
thing.
Yeah,
yeah, I had a weird, my parents got divorced when I was around 7, and I didn't know or remember how racist my dad was. My mom very much was not, and she always had, we had fam. It was, all different colors and hanging out at people's houses and stuff. And then my dad, I went to visit, and he was using the N-word in a really different way than I had ever heard it, because I had only heard it used in black communities. And I was like, he doesn't mean the same thing. And I was like a teenager by the time I figured that out, got exposed to that particular brand of racism. There was, of course, stuff that happened in school, because my school was mostly white, and people say dumb shit. But it wasn't as overt, and grown-ups doing it until then.
Well, I remember, so me and my grandmother, my mother's mother, we're both college basketball fans. I'm a Carolina fan. She was a Duke fan. And I remember, and we would call each other and tease each other when one of our teams lost or whatever. And I remember calling her one day. And this was when Mike Krzyzewski had started coaching there. And I called her up. It's like, what's up with Duke? We won in your house. And she's like, well, if that, and I am going to use slurs to make a point. This is not me saying this. Please do not cut this out of context, please. My grandmother said, well, if that kike would stop playing all those color boys, maybe we could win a game. And I'm like, grandmother.
Gosh. Oh, my goodness.
I dropped the phone. What?
Yeah. My dad was like an equal opportunity racist. He had all the words for everybody.
And so then I told my mother the story, and she's like, well, I try. You're lucky. And that's when I learned the story that, I had a talk with your grandmother about using certain words around you. I'm like, oh, because I thought they were okay because they always voted Democrat. But when Obama and that side, and then my other side of the family was just racist to they didn't hide it. They may not have used the words, but they definitely were.
Can I tell you the story about my dad giving me $50 when I got elected to be an Obama delegate? He like folded it up really, really small. I was at his house visiting before I went to Denver. He folded up really, really small and just kind of walks by my chair and like poking me when he's like, I don't approve what you're doing, electing that N-word, but he said it. But I'm proud of you. And I was just like, I just wanted to take it and shove it up his nose, but it was just like, no.
Like, no. Like,
I'm taking this and electing Obama. I was so happy to send him like this picture of people standing outside the convention center with big rednecks for Obama banner. Because like my mother didn't use my dad's name. She just called him Redneck like my whole life, pretty much.
So... But yeah, I mean, even, you know, and we're Generation X, so we're Generation X, so we grew up where there was this transition where we still were dealing with a lot of racism from our families and stuff, and having to navigate that. And of course, I you know, made mistakes growing up and everything that, you know, I evolved and grew and learned from, as far as that's concerned. So, you know.
Oh, that's good.
Well, I mean, I think we all. I mean, even if you do your best, you know, and my parents did their best to keep me from dealing with that, but you're still going to make mistakes, as you know, because especially if you're still getting that information, even though it's tempered down, you know, my parents did the best they could. But that doesn't mean my grandparents were going to do the best they could. They were going to not use certain language, but they also...
Yeah, my grandparents never really talked about it. But then again, my grandparents were German, and they had, like, palpable shame about the Holocaust. We couldn't really discuss it. So I think they had and they were big Kennedy fans, and I think they came here, you know, and they saw the Civil Rights Movement, and when they were having their kids, and... we never talked about it, but it was definitely from that generation. It's like, I know my grandmother was born in 1911. They didn't have it the same way that the boomers did, really.
Right.
So, yeah. But my dad, I fought back against him a lot over the years, and I would walk out. I lived with him briefly, and he talked to a friend of mine on the phone for like 45 minutes, and then my friend came to pick me up, and my dad came into my room, like, get that off my porch before I get my shotgun. I'm like, you just talked to him on the phone. Like, then you saw he was black, and you didn't want him around your daughter. And I just packed a bag. I left, and I didn't go back. I moved out. I was always very in his face about that. And, you know, but he talks, I understand him. He lived through white flight in a period in suburban New York, or not suburban, rural New York, out like in farmland basically, and his dad worked at the dump, and he got made fun of. I always heard this story about him being made fun of because he was wearing shoes that his dad brought home that had belonged to someone who had thrown them away. And so I understand the history of that my dad, then when black folks started moving in the neighborhood and everybody's doing the there goes the neighborhood, it was someone beneath him to pick on.
Right.
You know, it was someone beneath your status in society. And that's where a lot of it was. Poorer white folks and working class white folks just being afraid of, you know, stuff being taken from them, or being in a position to finally not be the one picked on.
And this has been discussed, it's not in the notes, but this has been discussed in the past of how certain politicians uses race to keep the classes from so that there's not a class connection. You know, that there are poor people all over the board, but if you can keep them separated by race somehow, that will keep them from rallying together and basically eating the rich, you know, kind of situation where it's like, hey, you know, if we could get, and I think I've said this before in our previous one, that we talked about this in our first volume, that, you know, if we could get together and be like, hey, all these rich, you know, fucks, why are they fucking with you? Because they're also fucking with me instead of, but what they've done is they separated the races so that we're fighting amongst ourselves so that we can't unify and fight the imperial power of people who have way too much money.
Yeah, it's an outright political tactic of
it is
a certain bent of people. So you, in the notes, briefly mentioned the poem at Ellis Island at the Statue of Liberty, I mean. Mm-hmm. Would you like me to read the full text of that poem?
I would.
Because I love it. I discovered it many, many years ago. And people only ever know that one line, right? Give me you're tired, you're poor. And they use it. And it's a good one to use because, it's usually who's being put down when we're using this to make a point about how other people saw the American dream enough to give us that statue. So
the poem's called The New Colossus, correct?
It is. Okay. By Emma Lazarus. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land, here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep ancient lands, your storied pomp, cries she with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Oh, all right. So I stumbled a few times, unfortunately, or I would have kept the recording. But I was getting chills and my eyes are tearing up. So it was really hard to get through.
I understand.
I thought it would be fine, but whew, this is who we are supposed to be.
Right. And I want to be clear as the Christian theologian, and this is something I also noticed. Let's play for a second that this is a Christian nation. It's not just want to be clear on that fact, but we'll play along for a minute. Then at this point, there are multiple places in the Bible that tells us how we should teach, how we should treat those who are immigrations. Love thy neighbor, and they say love thy neighbor and hate your enemy, but I say love your enemy and pray for them, those who persecute you. Pray. We should look out for everybody. In Matthew, and that was in Matthew 25:40. Trust I say to you, as you did to the least of my brethren, you have done to me. We are supposed to take care of each other. We are supposed to take care of each other, and that includes the immigrants. As someone who studied theology, one of the things that you learn quickly is you're going to need multiple versions of the Bible, especially because I was born and raised and theologically in Protestant, but I went to a Catholic college for my degree. I did that because they have a little more leeway towards actually believing in science versus a lot of Protestant theological places around here, anyways. So that is why I chose the Catholic college. But the Catholics have a much larger Bible than the Protestants. But I have a Bible that Dr. Reverend Barber talks about, and it's called let me make sure I see it properly and say exactly, the Poverty and Justice Bible. And what it does, and you should get a copy of this if you're a Christian or if you're not a Christian. You should get a copy of this because what it does is it highlights all the discussions about how to take care of the poor, how to take care of the foreign, immigrants, how to take care of each other. It is very detailed, and it highlights those specific passages in specific colors so you know which ones it's talking about as far as justice, as far as poverty, and as far as everything else. And it has quite a number of highlighted passages in the Bible about how to take care of immigration. Did you know those Christians, if you have read your Bible, then you would know this, that God brought down his wrath on the Jewish nations multiple times because they were mistreating the poor and they were mistreating the immigrants. That should be a warning sign to you that if you're mistreating the poor and if you're mistreating the immigrants and you claim this is a Christian nation, then maybe you should start acting like a Christian nation and take care of the immigrants, because that is extremely important.
Yeah,
that is part of being a Christian.
A review of this I'm seeing on Grace and Truth, explaining that the Bible Society produced a version of the Bible which highlights in vivid orange the 3,000 verses in the Bible that relate to poverty and justice. So, yeah, absolutely. I love Reverend Barber so much.
I do. He's, we are lucky to have someone like that as part of our, state heritage, because he is such an amazing individual. But yeah, it's extremely important. And I just want, and I'll put a link into the 22 verses I saw. But I also want you to understand something else. Trump's an idiot, okay? Because this is something. If you've listened to any of his speeches, and I've listened to way too many of them, mostly to mock him, but they've become rote. They're the same things for the most part, and I think that's why he's throwing in things like the shark story about the electric boat or whatever. But one of the things he says is that they're emptying their jails and their prisons, and they're emptying their mental institutions and insane asylums. Why does he keep saying insane asylums? Because he doesn't understand that as people who are seeking asylum aren't crazy. They're seeking asylum. That particular version of asylum is seeking refuge and protection from whatever is going on in their world.
Yeah.
But
he's not so great at words.
No, but he has the best words. He said that multiple times. He has the best words. But that's also why he brings up Hannibal Lecter, because it's a connection in his brain, because Hannibal Lecter was in an insane asylum, and everything else. So that's
sort of. I've seen some different reasons he does that. Like, that's very much about his heyday, and he had connections to that movie in his heyday in the 80s and whatever. But we'll see.
But he's
crazy.
He's
crazy.
He's an idiot.
So there's that.
He's crazy and he's an idiot. So, And by the way, I also, because turning the age I turned, they wanted to go ahead and give me the cognitive test just to make sure. And I also passed it with flying colors. So, I think it was an extremely easy test. Just saying, if he could pass it and I can pass it, I think, it's not something you need to worry about. But, another thing is people talk about, they're taking our jobs and everything else. And if you can read this, because this comes from an article from the Boston University. It is an article and that's a direct quote from it, just to understand about the particular wages and stuff like that and how it actually works.
It's a study from BU? Okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Immigrants stealing work from existing residents is a well-worn contention, with a history stretching back at least 100 years, right up to present-day accusations that Tyson Foods could replace American workers with immigrant labor. But it's a false one, according to Boston University economist Tariq Hassan, whose recent studies have shown immigrants actually help fuel local economics by sparking innovation and driving up wages. Yeah, that's well established. I've seen that a lot over the years. We saw a lot of that. I think you mentioned last week about the crops, going to shit in Florida, right. And then, wages coming up post-pandemic when a lot of this hiring started back up.
Right, and the other thing that you have to keep in mind with all of this is that they don't just come in and do jobs. That's one of the things that some of them have done, like in Springfield. They've revitalized the working class in Springfield. There's a lot of those individuals who are that there were jobs that were unfilled or weren't, whatever, and they have that. But another thing that they've done is they've opened up restaurants, they've opened up small businesses. There was
our whole cultural melting pot and all these things that we have to eat and explore and learn that immigrants bring. I mean, that's the fabric of our country, and our culture it's just that it's made up of a bunch of other stuff.
Well, remember back when Hillary Clinton was running for president, and one of Trump's surrogates said that if Hillary Clinton wins, then there will be a taco truck on every street corner. And I was like, and this is not a selling point for me to vote for Hillary Clinton. I am still mad at that situation, that there's not because of the fact that idiots voted for Trump. I don't have a taco truck, and after 8 years, it would probably be a taco stand by now, because it's a taco truck on my street corner. I can have tacos every day. But it's like, Indian, I've never had Indian food. I want to have Indian food. I just haven't had the ability to go to an Indian restaurant.
I love Indian food.
But it's like, Indian food. And then you've got, I love Jamaican food. The beef patties, which is like a pot pie, but not a pot pie, but it's like a Pop-Tart, but full of tasty, tasty meat, is amazing. Jerk chicken and all of this. I love to eat. I am a round man. I am a very round man who enjoys food, and nothing sparks my interest more than going to these different cultural restaurants and trying out new foods. It's like, because it's an experience, and if you're scared of that experience and you're scared of people at that point, you're not living. Go and experiment with food, and you will find a new culture, new people, and it'll broaden your horizons. And I think food is a big way to help do that. I was watching clips from guys, Triple D, and it talks about how he goes to this one restaurant that the immigrants came and started a gas station, and then started a little tiny restaurant, Indian restaurant, and now they had to expand a third time because it was so popular. But this place, never even had Indian food within 50 miles of the place, and now it's like one of the most popular places in the city. So, food can bring us together, I honestly think. But it's also important just to realize that they do bring other innovations. They are bringing their best and their brightest, because they want to work, because they want the American dream. And Trump says they're not bringing their best and the brightest. If they want to come to this country and make a better life for themselves, yes, they are bringing their best and the brightest, because they want to be better. They want to have a better life. There used to be immigrants from Europe and stuff used to claim that America's streets were paved with gold. And technically it is, because there's a wealth of opportunities for them. That doesn't diminish my opportunities or September's opportunities or your opportunities. There's enough opportunities for all of us if we're willing to just stop being xenophobic assholes. Mm-hmm. But you also posted something about, rid of the immigrants.
Yeah, and it was this glib, this weirdo right-wing jerk who worked in the Trump administration, got fired for being a security risk. Then he got hired back in a higher position because, Trump just thought he was so good-looking and wanted him to bring in his coffee. And he started a dating site for conservatives, and that failed too, because what women wants that? And he does these little, I'm eating lunch, they're promoting his website like he's sitting there on a date, and says shit people are all worried, who's going to do these jobs if we don't have the immigrants, these jobs we don't want to do? Well, somebody did them before, right? Yeah!
And what?
Slaves! You fucktard! Holy shit! No, would you miss that? This is why they don't want critical race theory in school, because they just want to teach that like it was a job opportunity.
Right. Yeah.
No, it was indentured servants and slaves. We don't have them. So somebody still has to do these, lower paying jobs, and they shouldn't be because it's legitimate labor anyway. That's a whole nother. Yeah, this guy's so gross. Oh, and you know what? I don't want to even say his name, but he also was messaging an underage, or like barely 18 girl. Like she was just graduating high school. Like, I want to meet you as soon as you turn 18, even though you're a liberal. So just the biggest, grossest hypocrite. And then and that makes it like you're not even this stupid. You know damn well who did the jobs before that. You're just disgusting.
Well, you got to remember, our lieutenant governor thinks that we should bring back slavery, and he'd like to own a few. So, I mean, it kind of meshes with what. Here's the thing. I want to bring that up for a second.
I saw a Mark Robinson sign in someone's yard yesterday, and I'm like, how do you even? Ew.
Because they are racist? I don't know. But, here's the thing. I don't think Mark Robinson realizes that if they bring back slavery, he may be one of the first. I'm just saying,
Right? Can't have them owning businesses and doing politics.
Right. And we talked about the racism. One of the things that kept screaming in my head was redlining. How so many people, so many black people could not get houses in certain areas because they weren't allowed to because of redlining, and that is still a problem to this day. I mean, they don't do the redlining, but it's because of that a large percentage of the black community weren't able to get generational wealth, which is owning a house or whatever, and building on that capital, because they couldn't get a house. So they were stuck in the cities. And then they made it to where they talk about how how bridges and stuff were designed so that buses couldn't go under certain bridges, so they couldn't go under to certain neighborhoods without going all the way around. That was a big deal too.
Oh, we still have sundown states. Rutherford County just got boycotted by truckers because they hung a guy.
I'd heard about that, and I hadn't heard much details, but all right. Even today,
there was a lynching.
In North Carolina. That's bloody great. Yeah. So it's like, because we need that to start happening, and that's the thing, is, and we've talked about this, and one of the topics. So let me touch on this for a few seconds. Next week's show is the debate, and we're going to discuss the debate, and then for the rest of October until Election Day, we're going to be doing different topics to kind of just energize the base, or energize us to say, get people out to vote. Though after the debate, we'll be discussing women's health care and reproductive rights. After that, I want us to revisit just how dangerous Trump is to democracy, because it's been popping up my feeds lately, and they've been kind of hammering it home on MSNBC's clips. They've been really bringing back the January 6th stuff, and we did a show, and I'm going to eventually rewatch it and see how we handled it when we went live on that. But I want to discuss why, and you mentioned this, for the first time in American history, even during the Civil War, we did not have a peaceful transfer of power. And that needs to be discussed as far as the danger.
That we did. But I know what you meant.
Yeah. But we need to discuss the danger of Trump in the democracy. And then we'll talk about economics. I'm not the last one is a little nebulous right now, but at least we've got the next three that we will be doing, and I just wanted to give everybody a heads up on that. So, All right. Anything else on immigration besides the fact that we should be better at better humans?
Let's elect everybody down the ballot so we can get that reform passed, no matter what that butthead says.
Yes, I agree.
Get rid of the people
All
that
right.
listen to them, because that's not what they swore to do when they signed up for office. So
That is correct. We need to, because we need, yeah, that's the thing, is like, and that's one of the things that
get rid of the cultists.
Yeah. We need to purge, we need to purge our house of these people who are not willing to govern. Because, well, before we get into that, before we go to kid and stick.
We're moving on. What are you doing now?
It's like, one of the reasons why it took them so long to pass the Continuing Resolution Act so that our government didn't have a shutdown in October was because they were trying to put a poison pill into this bill called the SAFE Act, I think it was, which is basically a version of what you just talked about. We're trying to do with North Carolina's Constitution, with that voting bill. But here's the thing: you're supposed to show proof of citizenship to be able to vote. What it does is it adds an extra hurdle for people to vote, and it also gives them another ability to challenge. It's like, is this a real birth certificate? Blah blah blah. Is this a real documentation showing that you're a citizen? So they can challenge more people at the ballot. That's all this is.
It's not, though. I think you're missing a super important part of that mess. But at least I think it made it easier to get the continuation done and not that ripped out of it. Is they were trying to enforce the voter identification being that your birth certificate matched your driver's license, which would disenfranchise any married woman, pretty much.
Right.
Like, do you think somebody was going to fall for that? Holy shit.
And it also disenfranchised anybody who had gender-affirming care and is in a state that...
right, but I'm talking about half the population.
Right, we are talking... yeah.
Not just their normal racist, homophobic targeting bullshit.
But this... Right, correct. It's like, for example, your last name on your birth certificate is not the same last name as you have on your driver's license. So, that would be problematic. A lot, because you can't change your birth certificate's last name, because that's not how any of that works. I didn't even realize that part.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy. Well, Mark Robinson also said he'd like it where women couldn't vote again, so...
Sure did.
Don't vote for Mark Robinson, especially if you're a woman. But if you care about women at all, don't vote for him. He is bad for everybody. Just don't. He should lose by 1,000. He is like, nobody vote for him. Kind of.
I got to hear a bleeped, by method of Smurf, version of one of his fantasies he posted about his sister-in-law. Yeah. Ew.
Yeah, I heard that one too last night. I watched that too, and I'm going, oh, I don't want to know that. No. Why
can
are
we
you
not?
using Smurf? And then she rips it.
Yep, there goes my childhood. Yeah.
God. So, anyways, ending on a laughing note as far as immigration, it's extremely important that we do this, is that we get the right people in there so we can get immigration fixed, so we can do a better path to citizenship, because these individuals deserve that chance. With that being said, why don't we move to our carrot and stick?
Okay. And dreamers. We need to keep up helping the dreamers.
Of course. Of course.
What's up, Doc?
So our carrot goes to another GOP individual. So it's 2 weeks in a row. It's like somehow morals are suddenly going back into the GOP. I'm shocked. So Nebraska and Maine have because I looked this up just to make sure, because I thought they did, But Nebraska and Maine are the only two states that are not winner take all when it comes to the Electoral College. And Nebraska was trying, the GOP, which controls the House, because most of it is GOP controlled, was trying to change it at the last minute to where it was a winner-take-all state. And they were basically waiting for State Senator Mike McDonald to make his final decision, because he was going to be the one, because they needed a certain number of votes, and he would have to be one of those votes. And he basically said no. Is like, no, we're not going to change this, especially 45 days before the election happens. We're not going to make this change. It denies the will of the voters. So, I just want to give him props for that, because he stood up for democracy when he really didn't have to. So I do appreciate that.
Okay. I'm not going to get into the Electoral College right now.
Let's
move on to the stick.
Yeah.
Don't you blaspheme in here. Don't you blaspheme in here.
Thou shalt not kill. And this is so.
Yeah.
A gentleman was killed. I am anti. Let me state this first. I am anti-death penalty. I grew from thinking it was perfectly reasonable to realizing that it's state-sponsored murder as far as I'm concerned, and it's just gross. And we shouldn't be doing it. It's not a deterrent. It's just that it's revenge. That's all it is in my mind. And that's not something we're supposed to be doing for justice. But and I am going to butcher his first name. It's Marcellus? Is that? Am I? All right, Marcellus Williams. All right. Was killed by the state of Missouri, even after the prosecutors that initially prosecuted him said, nope, we're wrong. They not
only said they were wrong, that side of the argument admitted racial bias.
Mm-hmm.
The evidence was re-examined, put into question, and there was DNA everywhere. None of it was his.
Mm-hmm.
He was an innocent man. Did you see his last words?
No, I did not see his last
He had a written statement my friend Ken posted, and it was, praise be to Allah in all circumstances.
And and both the state and Supreme Court denied clemency, and then the governor didn't do anything about it either and let it happen, even though the prosecutors fought vigorously. Now, I did read this, that they were right there with the Midwestern Innocence Project trying to get this reversed. And, and even the governor of the state was like, no. And the family's victims even refused to go to the execution because they didn't believe it was him. So an innocent man was killed for a crime he didn't commit. And
55 years old, and he spent the last more than 20 years in prison, and now they killed him.
Mm-hmm. And that's just, it shouldn't be. And it's deplorable, it's gross, and it's racial bias, because he was a black man. He was also a Muslim. And, of course, that probably played into it. And all 6 of the conservative judges on the Supreme Court said, yeah, let him die. And it's, even though evidence said no, that he didn't do it.
Like how it is in no form justice. That's...
Mm-hmm. No. So, what is our call to action?
Okay, so a lot of people missed it last night, and I felt really bad because I guess I just found it and responded early to watch Geeks and Nerds for Harris last night. It was fun. It went about 4 hours, although you can skip around. I realized when the sign up was through Eventbrite. And here's the thing. The Eventbrite thing was really just to get an email when they released what the link was going to be. They broadcast at. This thing was put together in like 8 days. So what they ended up doing was broadcasting at Linda Carter, OG Wonder Woman, if you don't know, was a big part of organizing this, and they used her YouTube channel. So I got the email, several hours before the event saying, all right, here's where you're doing it, the link. But I guess I didn't read the whole email. It wasn't all that clear that I should go ahead and just share the link with people, because all anyone needed to do was go to Linda Carter's YouTube. You didn't need to go to the Eventbrite site and RSVP, and people had that impression. As a matter of fact, when the event was beginning, the Eventbrite site went down. It got broken by people trying to get in. So I apologize to anybody. I posted it in my Facebook, and I sent it to like you, Barney, and my friend Sandra, who were like, "Oh my God, I can't get in." It's like, you don't need to get into Eventbrite. But if you go to geeksforharris.org, you can still go watch the video. I just checked before the show; it was up, and you can still donate. They have it was a friendly contest of like the Earth heroes and the space heroes of people from different shows, Stranger Things and The Boys, and then they had Star Wars and Star Trek. It's a lot of fun. The website there's a link to the schedule, so you can see at which hour who appeared, but so much fun. I mean, George Takei, of course, gotta love him. Felicia Day sent in a message. She couldn't make it live because she's on Broadway. Sean Astin made me cry. I won't spoil it. There's a book I want to get that I learned about there. It was fantastic. So you can go there. You can see what the schedule is. You can watch some of your favorite folks. They did a lot of donation matching. The last I saw when it ended, one made just Earth and Space. One made just under, and one made just over $250,000. So obviously more than the $25K that we're watching got in there, because even with the matching, it looks like they raised about $500,000. And I understand there's a few more days where you can go there and keep donating by this method. They talk a lot about other ways you can help. So it's another call to action. There's Vote Forward, votewfd.org, that you can write letters. So even if you're, you can't canvass whatever disability or whatever, you're scared to go meet a bunch of strangers, you're an introvert. If you go to voteforwardfwd.org, you can sign up to write letters, print them out, put in a few personal lines, and send them out. And this is a very effective way to get the vote out. And the whole program has a lot of different ways you can participate.
I definitely am going to be watching this after we finish recording, because Samwise is the hero of the Lord of the Rings, and that's all I have to say about that. I even wrote a paper about it, so I'm just saying.
I have a little action figure of Samwise in my kitchen. He's my guardian. Everyone needs a Sam.
Everybody does, yeah. I have a.
Oh my gosh, Tim Walz is like Kamala's Sam. Kamala's Sam is Tim. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't carry it, BP Harris, but I can carry you.
I can see it happening. Hey, carry whole ass Trump to Mount Doom and throw him in. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Because real quick, I am a huge Lord of the Rings nerd. I have seen the extended cut at least 400 times. I read the books every November. So everything else, and there are three things that still will cause me to tear up. One is, I would have followed you, my brother, my captain, my king. I just I'm in tears. The other is just I didn't think I'd die standing next to an elf. What about standing next to a friend? Tears. And then I can't carry it, but I can carry you, Mr. Frodo. And tears again.
I cried twice during this thing. I'm such a sap for all. I don't even remember what the other point was. It was another, like, some kind of diversity or point or something. One of those things that gets me in the feels.
But Linda Carter is the. I know that Gail Simone was watching it and she did an epic run of writing for Wonder Woman. There's a gentleman that is not geek known, but his name is John Fugelsang. He was his parents were a former nun and a former monk that fell in love and decided, well, we can't be monks and nuns anymore. But so he is very steeped in the religion, and he is one of my inspirations when it comes to this podcast, because he talks about how Jesus really is versus how he has been overtaken, and he is very into trying to put that message out too. So
yeah, the authors of this book I want to get, by the way, I want to tell you the book's called Fandom Acts of Kindness, a heroic guide to activism, advocacy, and doing chaotic good. Love it.
And the authors are.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have that?
Oh, yeah. Tanya Cook and Kayla Joseph.
Okay. So look that book up and possibly purchase that book for yourself, or if you already have that book, or
it's on Amazon for $13.88 right now.
Yeah, buy a couple of copies and give it to some of your geek friends.
$9.99 on Kindle. This went down since last night. I gotta wonder if that was because of the event. Like, we literally looked it up last night, and I was like, it was $17.95, and now it's 23% off.
It might be because they've gotten so many sales at this point that they can actually put it on sale.
Yeah,
that may be it. Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, so. All right. So, with that being said, I thank you for joining us at Heresy and Hearsay. I'm Reverend Barney, and you can follow me on all the socials at Seth Roth II. You can also find the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and any podcast catcher. Just Google us.
And I'm September. You can follow me at my website, Ninof12.com. There you can connect to all of my content. And please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/heresy and hearsay, where $2 a month will really help keep us going. Thanks for listening today, and bless your hearts.